Hey guys, today we wanted to share with you some of the not so glamorous truths about RV renovation or remodeling. We wanted to prepare you just in case you're thinking about undergoing the process yourself, so stick around to see what's up.
Hey guys, we're Life Outside Boundaries. If you're new to our channel, we post a lot of RVing, camping, and traveling tips and tricks to hopefully help and inspire others. Please go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel now if topics like this interest you.
We remodeled our 2019 Coachman Clipper travel trailer last year, and while it turned out beautiful, it was very not glamorous along the way. And if you look closely, you can find all of the imperfections and the results as well. We still love it though, but we wanted to show you guys and explain some of the things that went wrong during our process. Some of the biggest headaches from the process and things to consider were, first of all, painting. That was the worst of all. It took way more coats than originally planned, and it was extremely tedious and draining. There are a ton of hard to cover cracks and crevices throughout the RV where it's almost impossible to get the paint to fully cover it. There are also awkward gaps between the cabinets and ceilings and between the frame around the fridge and the wall. When you push paint into these areas to make sure they're fully covered, you get little globs stuck between the two places that look tacky. We ended up just lining around the fridge with some caulk to fill these gaps in, which you can see here. But before, it looked kind of like it did right here above the cabinets and the ceiling. Another thing is that paint and primer doesn't stick to the silicone or glue stuck to the walls around the shower and shower head from the manufacturer. So ours turned out looking like this. Stick around to the end for the link to our video on the steps to painting the inside of your RV. Also, be prepared to sweat a lot, especially if it's not cool out. Like I mentioned in some of our other videos, we did this in Florida in October, which we thought would be a little bit cooler, but it ended up being a really hot series of weeks up in the 90s, and we just had the camper in our driveway without shore power, so we were very hot. If you're removing the dinette or other furniture in the RV, it will most likely be screwed into the ground and leave holes in the floor. So if you aren't planning on replacing your floor, be prepared for these showing or figuring out a way to fill or cover them. Another thing with removing furniture from the manufacturer is most of it isn't built like actual furniture, and it's actually built into whatever is next to it. So an example of this is our dinette's back on one side was actually made up of the side of the kitchen counter. So when we took that out, we had to cut out a piece of plywood to make a new side for the kitchen counter because it was just the inner bearings of the counter showing instead of being covered. So we covered that up with a piece of plywood and then painted over it. Another really fun thing that we did that it looks okay, but honestly it didn't turn out the way we thought it would, was peel and stick. So if you're using peel and stick, we would suggest sticking the bottom part before the top in the camper if you're doing it somewhere around the grounds, because you might end up with a gap between the bottom of the peel and stick and the ground. A lot of this is because the surfaces aren't perfectly level across the whole edge, and this will become obvious as you're trying to cover them. We had a lot of frustrations with the peel and stick, but luckily we did it close enough to the ground it's not super obvious. Additionally, we decided to change out the faucet in our kitchen, and the way ours was set up, it was almost impossible to reach the spot where the old faucet was attached to unscrew it. And we had to do it without being able to see it at all because where this was, it was so far up in the corner that it was completely hidden. Another thing when you're doing the faucet is that you're probably going to need an adapter to attach the hose of the faucet to the water supply line, because the sizes are different between what normally comes with new faucets and what comes with RV faucets, of course, because why would they use anything normal in an RV? An additional thing to keep in mind is if you're working on your RV at your house where you can't store it overnight, having to tow it back and forth between the storage unit and the house can be a little bit of a pain, so make sure you have the time prepared to do that so you don't feel rushed while you're working on the camper. We would suggest doing it during a cooler part of the year if you aren't having it hooked up to shore power while working on it. Make sure you know where and have room to store your cabinets, couches, bed, or anything else that you remove from the camper when you start painting the inside. We took pretty much everything out of ours and we just had it stacked up in our house for a while, which wasn't great, but we knew we weren't going to be having company and there was no reason for our house to look beautiful at the moment, so we put up with it. But just be prepared to figure out where you're going to put those things. Additionally, when you're taking out the cabinets, try to come up with an effective labeling system for cabinet fronts to make sure they end up back in the right place. Even though they all appear to be the same size in certain places, the placement of the holes where the hinges and stuff go can cause a gap to show kind of like this if they aren't put back in the spot where they came from. We decided to cover our couch using staples instead of stitching it because it was just a cheaper and easier solution for us. If you're going to do this and you're measuring what you need for fabric, decide whether you're going to do individual cushions or if you're going to cover all cushions together. Our couch had separate cushions. It had 3 separate cushions, which we thought originally that we were going to cover individually, but using a staple gun it really wasn't possible because they weren't totally separated and there was no way to get the fabric to stick into each crevice between them. So we ended up just covering it all as one cushion, and we had a ton of extra fabric because of this, and the fabric that we chose wasn't that cheap. It cost us a little over $100 for all of the fabric, and it could have definitely been cheaper had we known that we were just going to cover them all as one cushion. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are planning on covering your couch. While we love the backsplash that we chose, we weren't very patient with measuring out the backsplash to cover the walls in the kitchen and the bathroom and ended up with a lot of spots like this where the wall is still showing around things that we couldn't remove. But we did pick up a cool cutter, which we'll find the name of the thing that we got. It was kind of like a board cutter that made cutting the backsplash a lot easier, and we found that at Joann's, and I think it was only like $15 at the very most, so it was pretty cheap and it definitely made our lives a lot easier. Make sure to check out our 3 other videos that we did on our camper renovation. We have one that's a full tour of our fully remodeled camper, and then we have one on painting the cabinets, which tells all the steps that we use that were helpful for us for painting those, and one for painting the walls inside the camper. So make sure you check those out. We hope this was helpful. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and we appreciate you.